Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the sprawling, dramatic, and honestly surprisingly rapid fall of one of the most magnificent powers in world history, the Mughal Empire. For centuries, the Mughals completely dominated the Indian subcontinent. We're talking unparalleled wealth, immense military might, and stunning cultural achievements. Yet by the mid-19th century, this absolute titan had completely withered away.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's an absolutely fascinating historical mystery. How does a seemingly invincible institution, one that commands vast armies and endless resources, just fail? Was it pushed over the edge, or did it crumble under its own weight? Today, we're going to unpack the anatomy of this collapse, tracing the precise domino effect that brought down the whole shebang.
To make sense of this massive historical timeline, we're breaking it down into 5 chapters. A tale of 2 emperors, the crumbling royal household, rebellions bleed the empire, the devastating Persian invasion, and finally, the British takeover.
Chapter 1. A Tale of 2 Emperors and the Seeds of Destruction.
You see, the collapse of the Mughal Empire didn't just happen overnight. The cracks actually started forming right at the absolute peak of the empire's power. It's really a classic tale of 2 completely different leadership styles. On one side, we have Akbar, ruling from 1556 to 1605. He focused heavily on consolidation through religious tolerance, even trying to blend faiths and setting up fair taxation to boost trade. But fast forward to Aurangzeb from 1658 to 1707. According to our historical sources, Aurangzeb took a starkly different, much more orthodox approach. He reimposed taxes on non-Muslims, destroyed certain temples, and levied incredibly heavy taxes just to fund his endless military campaigns.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide. Where Akbar used diplomacy, Aurangzeb relied on constant warfare. Where Akbar promoted trade, Aurangzeb drained the economy dry. We're looking straight at the historical record here, and it shows that these rigid policies and the religious and economic tensions they created sparked really deep internal strife across the subcontinent.
And the sheer scale of this constant warfare is, frankly, mind-boggling. Historian Stanley Wolpert called Aurangzeb's 27 Deccan Wars a Pyrrhic victory. We are talking about an estimated 100,000 lives lost every single year during that last decade. Plus, the emperor's moving capital needed to feed 500,000 camp followers, 30,000 elephants, and 50,000 camels. This relentless campaign literally stripped peninsular India of its surplus grain and wealth. It completely bankrupted the empire.
Chapter 2. The Crumbling Royal Household, Succession, and Chaos.
So, Aurangzeb dies in 1707, leaving behind this massively overextended, financially exhausted empire. What happens next is a period of immediate, catastrophic internal rot. To grasp why it collapsed so fast, think of scholar Stephen P. Blake's model, the patrimonial bureaucratic empire. Basically, imagine the entire empire is just one giant royal household. All power flows directly from the head of the family, the emperor. So what happens when the head of the family falls and his heirs start tearing the house apart fighting over it? The whole structure comes down.
And man, the unraveling happens fast, dizzying fast. In 1707, Bahadur Shah I wins a brutal succession war against his brothers, but he only lasts 5 years, dies in 1712. Then, total bloody chaos. The turnover gets so rapid that in the year 1719 alone, 4 different emperors cycle through the throne. It's absolute pandemonium.
With the throne turning into a literal revolving door of assassinations and depositions, central authority evaporated. That power vacuum, it gets filled right away by ambitious nobles, most famously the Syed brothers. These guys became the ultimate kingmakers. They were the ones pulling all the strings, making and unmaking teenage puppet emperors whenever they felt like it. The throne of the great Mughals was basically just a prop at this point.
Chapter 3. Rebellions bleed the empire, the rise of regional powers.
Look, when the center cannot hold, the edges break away. As the royal household tore itself apart, regional leaders saw their golden opportunity. The empire started bleeding from multi-front rebellions. Rajput nobles carved out independent kingdoms. Sikh rebellions took hold in the north. Even the Mughals' own governors, like the Nizam of Hyderabad, bailed to set up their own states. But the absolute biggest game changer, the Maratha Empire. Under Baji Rao I, who reportedly never lost a single battle, they exploded from holding just 3% to a massive 30% of the modern Indian landscape between 1720 and 1740.
Talk about a massive shift in power dynamics. By 1719, Maratha forces are literally marching right into the Mughal capital of Delhi. Alongside those Sayyid brothers, they deposed the emperor. Think about the profound irony here. The rebels are now calling the shots inside the capital, forcing the new puppet ruler to let them collect their own taxes across former Mughal lands. Wild, right?
Chapter 4. The devastating Persian invasion, Nader Shah strikes.
A fractured, bleeding empire is basically a giant, flashing, open-for-business sign for foreign predators. And those internal weaknesses are about to meet a fatal external blow. Enter Nader Shah of Persia. In 1738, his army pulls off this brilliant flanking maneuver through the Khyber Pass. Now, the Mughals prided themselves on swords and riding war elephants into battle. They kind of looked down on firearms. Big mistake. Nader Shah shows up with heavy muskets and camel-mounted cannons and absolutely crushes the outdated Mughal cavalry at the Battle of Karnal. After that, he marches straight into Delhi and subjects the capital to a horrific sack.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that number right there, 700 million rupees. That is the estimated value of the treasure Nader Shah plundered from Delhi. We're talking the legendary Peacock Throne, the famous Koh-i-Noor diamond, the whole shebang. The haul was so unimaginably huge that Nader Shah actually canceled taxes back home in Persia for 3 years. But for the Mughals, it completely broke their financial and psychological back.
Chapter 5. The British Takeover, the Final Blow.
By this point, the Mughal Empire is just a hollow shell. With the empire fractured into competing regional states, European colonial powers sweep in to pick up the pieces. The British East India Company didn't conquer India in one giant battle. They did it through a rapid, surgical succession of victories. In 1757, Robert Clive wins the Battle of Plassey using bribery and defection. Then in 1764, the Battle of Buxar, where the British crush a combined Indian army, even sending the fleeing Mughal emperor packing. This military dominance forces everyone to the negotiating table in 1765.
And that resulting Treaty of Allahabad, that was the true death knell. The crucial point is the British East India Company got Divani rights, meaning this foreign corporate entity now had the legal right to collect tax revenue across the incredibly wealthy provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. When an empire loses the right to collect its own taxes, well, it ceases to be an empire. This shifted the British presence from a military occupation right into a total economic takeover, paving the way for the British Raj.
So, looking back at the grand sweep of all this history, it leaves us with a really profound question. Did the Mughal Empire actually fall because of those devastating external blows from the Persians and the British? Or, when you think about the religious friction, the endless Deccan Wars, and that crumbling royal household, was the empire already utterly destroyed from within, long before the invaders even arrived? It's a massive domino effect. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.